What is wrong with you? Happy to see me. Well, of course I am. Why do you insist on filming me half to death every time you're in town?
Besides the fact that it's really fun. Actually, that's it. It's just really fun.
Oh, man, just want you to call me and tell me you're coming home like a normal person.
It's boring. No one's over.
That got me excited.
All right, so tonight we're going to kind of kick things off with the Whiskey Weigh-In podcast. We got our Proper 12 whiskey. I got some poured in my coffee mug here. We're kind of ready to rock and roll. We're going to be doing this every Monday night. And we're going to start off things by reviewing UFC Fight Night 154. All right, Shay, we got quite a few fights going on this card. And we're just going to be reviewing the main card here. Let me pull up my notes. There were some bangers in this one.
There were some bangers, and what was great about this card is there wasn't too many big names. I mean, if you just get your average fan, they're probably going to be like, oh yeah, the Korean Zombie. Other than that, your average fan might not know any of these people, but it was still great. It was a great card.
Yeah. There were even names here. I know I don't follow the UFC as well as you do, but that's part of this podcast. Is I think I'm going to be able to learn and get into it a lot more. There were a lot of names here that I've never seen before, but after these fights, 4 or 5 of these fights, 4 of them actually. Yeah, no, actually 5 were insane. A lot of great fights these nights. If there are any names that people haven't heard of before, they're definitely going to remember them now. Even if it was the opener with Kevin Holland and Alicio Di Chirico? Is that how you pronounce his name?
Di Chirico.
Yeah, so we can start out by talking about that. Kevin Holland ended up winning by decision, but it was a fight that went all 3 rounds. And one of the most interesting things that happened was that Kevin Holland actually dislocated his shoulder, or at least injured it pretty bad. He said it was out, and he had to kind of hide it away from the doctors to let them know he could still fight. And he stuck it out and ended up winning the fight, which is pretty great. Do you have any points on that one?
So Kevin, I really liked. We don't know if it was a dislocated shoulder. We haven't seen any reports about it. It was really cool to see him. He wasn't hiding it too well, in my opinion. I just don't think Di Chirico took advantage of it. I think you knew as soon as he did it. It looked bad. He was in the corner saying that it was bad, and I guess apparently that it was a reoccurring injury from the way they made it sound in his corner. Points. I mean, the biggest point I'll take is that Di Chirico didn't take advantage of it. Like, you see someone injured, you go after that injury. Takedowns. Di Chirico had a couple takedowns. Other than that, Holland said he had one, but officially he did not have one.
Yeah. Holland thought that the one takedown that he thought he had was when he hurt his shoulder. I remember him saying in the post-fight interview with Michael Bisping. Also during the fight, Michael Bisping mentioned that Kevin's cornerman was mic'd, so we got to hear all the details of that shoulder injury, and it was really funny. Kevin was trying to play it off and hide it from the doctors, and kept saying, what? Hiding that, he was pretty fucked up. He was hurt. And so Di Chirico, I don't know how he missed it.
I don't either.
think he didn't capitalize on that injury at all. He didn't go after it. That was something Michael Bisping mentioned multiple times in the commentary during the fight, that he didn't capitalize on it, and he thought he won, but Holland ended up coming out with a win. You want to run us through the quick fight stats?
Fight stats, actually, that's actually what I was just about to bring up. So total strikes, Holland went crazy in total strikes of 192 out of 253. While Di Chirico only went 62 and 97, but this is what I was talking to you when we were watching the fight. Significant strikes. It was 58 for Holland and 51 for Di Chirico. I feel that Holland was losing in that battle in the significant strikes until the 3rd round. And I think he really turned it up the 3rd round, which is surprising considering his shoulder injury. Takedowns, it was 2-0 in that one for Di Chirico. Then no submission attempts. And something I'd like to go over there for people that maybe not have watched it or wasn't really paying attention. Holland, what I really like about him, you'll find out on this podcast, I like people that talk trash. I don't know, I'm one of the weird ones. And he talked a lot of trash, and I feel like he backed it up, and I really, even in the post-fight, he was talking trash. I respect that.
Yeah, that was actually something I wanted to comment on too. Holland kind of referenced, I guess, some trash talk that happened between them on Instagram. We'll have to look that up and maybe do a little bit on that.
A little bit more research, yeah.
Yeah, I wish that we had it available, but I'd be interested to kind of see. It's one of the neat things about all these fighters having social medias. And DeKirko, he was a trash talker as well. He was not a good sport. He was throwing a fit at the end of the fight. He thought he had won, and Holland made sure he let everybody know that this guy was being kind of a big baby, is what he said.
Holland even said, like, he was like kicking the cage afterwards, like that he thought that he really won. I mean, you know, I kind of thought, like, well, the judges might give him a round, and then if a judge gives you a round, then it comes down to, oh man, it's like a split in that decision. Like, you don't know what the judges are going to do, because usually takedowns weigh it's pretty big in a fight, but it didn't seem that way in this one. It was unanimous.
Right, yeah, total strikes, Kevin Holland, 192 out of 253, had more significant strikes than DeKirko, 0 takedowns, but really outstruck him, and I think that's pretty much what ended up making the decision for this fight. The judges went with Holland.
Yep.
All right, so we got the next fight. It was also a banger, Andrea Lee and Montana De La Rosa. Andrea Lee's out of Texas. She's fighting in Louisiana now. I'm not sure where De La Rosa's out of. Are you familiar with her?
I'm not too familiar with De La Rosa. Not at all, actually.
Yeah, so Andrea Lee ended up coming out with a decision. It was a pretty good fight. She beat her up pretty bad. Out of total strikes, she annihilated her. 82 out of 135 thrown, 60% of her strikes landed. With De La Rosa only landed 29%. Significant strikes, there's an even bigger disparity. 73 out of 126, 57% landed. For De La Rosa, only 14 significant strikes out of 107 thrown, 13%. Andrea Lee, she did have one takedown. De La Rosa had 5 takedowns out of 12 attempted, but that didn't help her enough. She had one submission attempt that didn't work out, and so Lee ended up taking the win there. That was pretty clean cut decision at the end. Not too much more to say about that unless you have anything.
Once again, I'm just surprised with the takedowns. Like, it was unanimous for Lee. I'd be curious to see. I should have done a little bit more research on the control time on the ground for De La Rosa. Because when you have 5 takedowns, that's usually a good sign that you have a chance of winning. But the judges didn't score it that way at all. So I should have looked in a little bit more for the control time on the ground. But the strikes and the significant strikes, I mean, that was clear cut. But like I said, for the takedowns, it was surprising the judges didn't really go in her favor at all. I do feel that Lee won the fight, but just the way the judges scored it. It was very lopsided.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of another one of the fights where they just outstruck the opponent.
Yep.
Similar to the previous fight. And so the next one we have here is Andre Ewell, I think it's pronounced.
Yep.
Ewell. And versus Anderson Dos Santos.
Great fight.
Really good fight. This is probably one of my favorite fights of the night besides the main event.
This one was my favorite.
They were exchanging strikes the whole time. Fantastic sportsmanship. They were trash talking inside the octagon, but both men were giving each other high fives after each round.
Yep.
You could tell these guys were just having fun and brawling, but also showing their expertise as mixed martial artists. So I really enjoyed this fight. You want to kind of run us through a little bit of it?
Yeah, so I think my biggest takeaway from this fight was actually I feel that Dos Santos could have won this fight, but I feel like his pride got in his way and he wanted to stand and bang. Because when you go back and look at that third round, he was taking down Ewell very. It seemed like when he wanted him, whenever he wanted to, he would take him down, and then he would. He had control time in the clinch. He was doing well against him. But I think, he just wanted to stand and bang with him, and that ended up costing him the fight.
You know what? I do agree with that. Even in the first round, they were standing and banging a lot, and Ewell kept getting the best of him, landing strikes and countering punches. And it was finally later, I think in the second round, when Dos Santos started to take him down, pushed him up against the cage, started to kind of gain a little bit more control. But again, I agree that it was probably a pride thing. He wanted to kind of show him that he could stand with him, and Ewell ended up getting the best of him.
Yeah, I mean, Dos Santos was connecting some. but it wasn't the significant strikes like Ewell was landing. But I mean, they were both they were pretty much trading, but Ewell was getting the best of them with the better punches for sure.
Again, great fight. Probably would win fight of the night if it weren't for one of these two next ones. We actually got to see who won fight of the night. I'm sure it was Korean Zombie, the main event, but we'll get to that later. The next fight we have here is Brian Barberena versus Randy Brown. Randy Brown ended up getting the win here. Pretty good fight throughout each round. As far as strikes go, Randy seemed to kind of have less total strikes, but more significant strikes. Yep. And this one kind of ended in a TKO or a knockout. And so Randy ended up getting the best of Brian Barberena. What are your thoughts on this, aside from who won and some of the fight stats?
It was I really enjoyed this one because I really like Rude Boy. It's Randy Brown. I've always been a fan of him. He put on a clinic out there to me. I didn't really even realize that he lost in the total strikes. I didn't realize that.
I could actually chime in there. Brian Barberena had 122 out of 178 strikes, landed total 68% versus Randy Brown 91 of 154, 59%. So lower amount and lower percentage. But actually, Randy Brown, with significant strikes, though, almost doubled Barberena's 89 versus 47. So 58% of significant strikes versus the 46. And then the clear knockout at the end sealed the deal and made it clear cut. But even if it went to a decision, Brown probably would have taken it.
Yeah, and it was just Rude Boy. It seemed like he was, throughout the night, he was just in control of the fight. Like I said, because I didn't realize the total strikes that he lost in it. It just, because it felt like he controlled the fight, he controlled the octagon. He looked really good out there. I enjoyed watching him. He fought really well, and I'm glad to see him back out there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I loved Randy Brown. He was going forward and being aggressive when it was appropriate, but Barberena was just moving forward the whole time, and I think he paid for it a lot. You could see Randy Brown backing off but not running away from him,
right.
Dodging a lot of strikes, getting a lot of counter strikes in, throwing some really mean kicks, and there at the end, the TKO, I think what sealed the deal was that knee to the face that Randy Brown landed on Barberena. That was vicious. Then he got a couple more punches in, and then the ref jumped in. So really, really good fight. Great welterweight co-main event. And then now that takes us to the main event, which is the shortest fight of the night. 58 seconds. The Korean Zombie knocked out, how do you pronounce this guy's name? Renato Moicano?
Yeah.
Should have looked into that.
Moicano.
But anyways, the Korean Zombie wins with this perfect boxing move. It looked like a ducking right hook. I might be wrong with the technical move there, but he was able to kind of duck his head, dodge a punch, and land a right hook right across the guy's face. Knocked him clear to the ground. Right after he landed that right hook, you noticed he was able to get a left hook in as well, and then from there on, as soon as he fell to the ground, he just tackled him, went after him, started punching him in the face, and it was very artistic punch that led to ultimately the finish. This fight didn't last long at all. This guy had 0 of 3 strikes, 0 of 3, 0 takedowns, 0 everything. Korean Zombie ended up dominating this one pretty quickly.
Yes, he did.
And I just read on the Bloody Elbow that there's an article saying that Korean Zombie is wanting a top 4 fight now that he's had this KO victory.
Completely disagree. He lost. So, that's what I was going to say. I was really glad to see Korean Zombie come out and win this one, because his last fight, he lost a devastating fight against Jair Rodriguez. If none of y'all have seen that fight, I would definitely recommend it. That was one of the best. I was telling Brenton right before this, that was probably the best knockout I've ever seen. I mean, it was a no-look elbow straight to the face that knocked Korean Zombie out. And as the timer went off, like if Korean Zombie gets up, it's not even a knockout. That's how crazy it was. And you lose one, you win one. I don't think you're ready for a title shot just yet. He's gonna have to prove a little bit more. Maybe win one, possibly two more big name fights, and I think he gets a title shot then.
Great. Yeah, so that's the UFC Fight Night 154 recap. We're going to be doing more of these, and we're going to be just getting better and better. Feel free to give us feedback. Let us know if there are any particular little bits and bites that you guys want us to go over. As of right now, we're kind of just talking a little bit about each fighter, going quickly over the fights and the fight stats, and we'll get into predictions and stuff like that moving forward.